All right, hello and welcome everyone to this month's CDI Consulting webinar. My name is Stephen Kreutzfeldt and I'm a pre-sales engineer here with CDI. And I'm going to be your host for today's webinar. Today we're going to be looking at the searching Laserfiche tips and tricks. If this is your first build-along, what is a build-along? In a nutshell, a build-along is meant to be an interactive experience designed to guide the viewer through the creation and deployment of a common business process. Today, what we're going to be looking at is actually just how to search Laserfiche, but we can build a couple of saved searches that you can then share and then use across the organization. If you have questions, please post those into the questions or the chat box. I'll reserve some time at the end of the webinar to go through and answer any of those questions you may have. To get the most out of this, make sure you take good notes. I'm a big fan of screenshots. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Post those in the questions in the chat box. Complete the survey afterwards. And know that this will be recorded and posted to our YouTube channel at the end of the week. And also individual sessions are available. So I'll let you know at the end of this also how you can get in touch with us and have someone from CDI walk you through some of your own processes. So today's process, searching in Laserfiche, this is intended for everyone. Anybody who has Laserfiche, users who are new to Laserfiche will probably get the most out of it, but ultimately searching is one of the most powerful features in Laserfiche and also one of the most underutilized, in my opinion. What we'll need access to, pretty much just the Laserfiche client. I thought about putting the admin console on here also. One thing I just want to start out right off by saying is that if you have a saved search that you really like, and it's been working great for you and you want to easily share that to the entire organization, there is a way to do that using the admin console. And so that's something we can talk about too. To help you follow along, we're going to start by looking at the quick search feature, and then we'll really dive in and spend most of our time on the advanced search, how to navigate and build those advanced searches out. And then we'll wrap up by looking at saved searches. All right, so I was kind of waffling back and forth. Should I use the web client or the desktop client? Both of them are exactly the same in the sense of like what the content is that's in there. Just the user interface is a little bit different. Ultimately, I found that most of our clients are actually using the desktop client, so that's what we're going to be focusing on. So if you are using the desktop client, you're probably familiar with this box right up here. It's just called the search box. We refer to it though as the quick search box. This is kind of like your Google search for Laserfiche. What you may not be aware of is that there are ways to adjust the search criteria and parameters to the right-hand side of this. So you have the option to search within the folder that you have selected. So you can already limit your search a little bit to that area. You can search by text. Note that in order to search by text, you have to make sure that you're using the OCR feature. That's something that I have some people turn off simply because it takes longer for the files to load into Laserfiche if you do that. If that's the case, no problem. There's a way to retroactively go in and then OCR and generate searchable text for your files afterwards. And so we can look at that too. More commonly, search for entry names. That would just be like searching for the name of this folder is human resources. If it's a document, it'd be the name of the document. When it says fields, search fields, that's actually referring to metadata fields. So if you're looking for some content that is only listed in metadata fields, that's what we would have there. And annotations is referring to stamps, sticky notes, redactions, markups, tags, things like that. You can also customize this too. If you use the custom search, it's actually going to ask you for a search query. Now, if you don't speak Laserfiche and you don't know how to write out the all of the syntax, I'm going to be showing you a quick little trick of how to get this written for you. The Laserfiche will present this, and so you can copy and paste that and then incorporate this into your search parameters. So the way this would work is that you would basically have something that says, I'm looking for documents only. I'm looking for documents that have a created date after January 1st of 2021. And then you would include your actual parameters, entry names, fields, and then search. And so that's what you would get. So let's look at a quick example of that. I'm not actually going to use the custom search. In my opinion, it's going to be a lot faster, a lot more efficient to simply enter your criteria into the advanced search, which we'll look at later. But let's go ahead and just see what would happen if we generate a search for text. And you know what, let's just search by text for a second. So if I type in roof, the first thing that's going to come up is anything that has roof in the text somehow. And it'll even show me how many context hits I have for that. If we click on one of these, we can see City of Rogers. If we double click on that, it's going to show us a document. And it looks like it's limiting it down a little bit too. So one thing that's kind of nice is if you go up and select the file that you're looking at, where that context hit would be. Actually, let's go ahead and pop back out again. Click on that again. It'll open up right to the page where it sees it. And so it looks like it has OF. Now, that's interesting because I typed in roof, but it gave me only 50%. Now, why would that be? Well, I'll tell you. There, under tools and under options, you can actually set some general search parameters and criteria at this level. So when you search, what you see, how you see it, and what it returns can be, I guess, adjusted per each user. So one of the things that I'm using here is what's known as fuzzy search. Fuzzy search is your best friend if spelling is not your strong suit. So if you're like, I'm not sure if receipt is R-E-C-E or R-E-C-I, well, you know what? Let's just go ahead and use fuzzy search and we'll try it one way and hope for the best. So the way you can set this up is either percentage of word. So if 10%, let's say it's 10 letters long, all right, you have the name Kreutzfeldt, my last name, right? If you can spell my name on the first try, I'll give you a handshake because it's a tricky one. I've heard it as being referred to as aggressively German. So if you think you can get within 10% of it, maybe put on the 10% fuzzy search. That's, I guess, your handicap, right? So if you don't know there's a Z in there, it'll still return it. Now you can up this up to 20%. In general, I think that 15% is usually a pretty good fuzzy search. I was playing around with the number of letters, and that's why we got so many context hits. So I typed in roof, and it's like, well, OF is 2 letters off of roof, so it returned that. So what I'd like to do is change that percentage of words. Oh, by the way, before I forget this, it's options, and then search, and then general. So let's just review that again. Tools, options, search, and then general. Also, you can turn on if it's case sensitive or not. I would say case insensitive is probably the best. You don't know when something's going to be capitalized or not, especially if you're searching by text, right? Because then if it's at the beginning of a word, if it's at the beginning of a sentence, it may be capitalized sometimes, but not always. Include variations of the words, sure. Records management, sure. Partial matches, yeah. I would leave all of these checked. And with the fuzzy search, my recommendation would be to say percentage of word and put that at about 15%. The results display also, I don't know if you caught that when I opened that up, but it showed OF in City of Rogers as highlighted in blue. And you can personalize this also. So if you want to show up in green or dark blue, it's just a personal setting you can put on here. Resolve shortcuts is going to be important, especially for those of you who are utilizing shortcuts, maybe in your public portal or something like that. If you don't have resolve shortcuts, it basically just won't find shortcuts. So if you have a list of shortcuts that are available to certain employees where they can't see the actual underlying document, but they can find the shortcut, you'll definitely want to make sure that resolve shortcuts shows up. Otherwise, they won't come up in the searches. So that's an important one. That's one you should write down. Return only the latest document in a link group. I mean, that would depend on whether or not you're using link groups. There's a way to create a relationship between documents. Most commonly, I see this with accounts payable. where if you have a purchase order and then a packing slip and then an invoice, you want there to be a relationship for all of those. So this would only return the latest document in a linked group. So if you type in the PO number or invoice number, something like that, it'll only return maybe the check that was paid out to that. I usually leave that off because chances are if I'm looking for something specific like that, I want to see all of them pop up in my context hit. And context lines, I would just leave that as default. And index searches, I would just leave that unchecked. So if we try this again with our roof, hit OK, we should see, well, unless we didn't save our options. There we go. Set that back up to 15, hit OK, and then search. Now we've only seen 3. So, all right. Now it looks like it grabbed just the cover sheet, so it only found 1 document, but it found 3 context hits. So what that's saying is that when we're searching in the quick search, specifically for text, it found 3 instances of the word roof. So if we click on that, it'll open up, and in the text dialog on the right-hand side, it highlighted roof. A way to trigger this, let's just go through some basics here quick. If you're opening up a PDF and you just double click on it, it's probably going to open up by default in Adobe Acrobat, something like that, some sort of PDF reader. If you have Laserfiche pages being generated, you're going to see something more like this, where you have the Laserfiche page options along the toolbar here. And from here, you can toggle on and off what you're actually viewing. So if we just want to view our metadata, we can view just the metadata. If we just want to view the text, then we can hit this text box and it'll bring up our text. So we can see all the instances where roof came in. If you want to see the page itself, you'll want to click on the image tab right here, and that'll show you the Laserfiche page that was generated. For me, especially if they're multi-page, I like to use the thumbnails and the text and the metadata and have kind of all of that. Your toolbar can be updated. Yours may not look like this. If that's the case, just know that you can right-click anywhere up here and customize. And if you go to commands, then you can start going through and seeing your different options in here. So if you want a way to quickly star your, or quickly remove your star in this case, because it looks like I already have a star, you would go to your command, find the one you want, and drag it up into your toolbar. So then when you open up your files and you're viewing them, you'll have that available to you now. So that's how you customize that. All right, so I'm going to close that out. And actually, on that note, let's go ahead and look at a specific document, because I think it is important to talk about the difference between PDFs. Actually, Word doc would be a good one. Let's do that. Where was it? So we have this service agreement for Oscar Martinez. If I were to just double click on this, because I have Microsoft Office installed, it's probably going to open up automatically in Microsoft Word. So as you can see, it's now viewing it in its original format, which is great, especially if I want to check this out, make changes to it, check it back in. However, if I'm searching for, let's say that we're looking for documents by name. We'll say service. Got a couple of service agreements. If you right click on here, you'll see you have 3 different options. You have the edit electronic file, which will mean that it'll open it in its native format, Microsoft Word. We can view the electronic file, which will also open it in Word, or we can view the pages. And so the pages will open up like we saw before. And it looks like there's actually not an image here for whatever reason. Now, the reason why that's important is because if you open something up and you are looking to view the text pane to see the context hits, you won't be able to see that if it opens in Word, that you won't have that little window. So when you're searching and it returns those context hits, you'll want to make sure that you're going to right click and then open pages in order to view that text. I hope that makes sense. I understand it can be a little convoluted. The best way to think about this is there's actually two documents here. It's displaying as a Word doc, but it has a separate level of Laserfiche pages attached to it also. All right, so hopefully, if you have any questions, drop those in the question box now. I'll address them at the end of the webinar, but while you're thinking about them, any questions about the quick search, let me know what those are. But I want to get into advanced search. I'm actually going to go back to my folder and just kind of clear that out. Advanced search. If you don't see this on your toolbar right now, go ahead and right click up here, go to customize, commands, and I would even just say all commands and just find search. I think it's called search. Or maybe it's advanced search. Okay, advanced search, and drag that up in here to your toolbar and just drop it when you have that vertical bar, because this is going to be a lifesaver. This is how you're really going to find everything that you need. So how do we use it? It seems a bit daunting. It seems a little bit complicated. Well, first thing I'm going to do is just X out of all my search tree here. You'll see there's two different options: records management search and customized search. The difference between these two is that records management is unique to Laserfiche records management. If you don't know what that is, then you probably don't have it, and it's probably not going to be relevant. In a nutshell, records management is for documents that have a life cycle where they need to be cut off, uneditable. They need to be retained for a certain number of days, years, months, depending on specific criteria and cutoff instructions, and ultimately either destroyed or ascension to a state repository or archives. If you want to search by any of those criteria, that's what this is for. We're not going to be looking at it too much today, but just know that it's out there. More commonly, and the reason why I don't spend as much time is because even if something is a record, you're still going to have the ability to use these other custom search options up here on the top for those records. So rather than go through each one of these one by one, let me focus on the ones that I use literally every single day. Number one, you're always going to want, and this is going to be different if you're using the web client or the thick client, depending on what version, but it's either going to be called name or type. In this case, mine is called name. It might be type ID also. But the reason why that's the first one you always want to use is because that's going to specify if you're looking for a document, a folder, or a shortcut. Note again that if you didn't check that box to resolve shortcuts and you're looking for shortcuts, it'll come up empty every single time. So you definitely want to make sure that you're resolving shortcuts. But right off the bat, you know that you're probably going to be looking for either a document or a folder. If you're looking for a folder, it's going to ask you just for the name here, and you may not know what that's called. So that's how we can build out and start adding things in here. Things like date. Date can be last modified date, created date, or both, created or last modified on the following date, or since yesterday, or within the last 2 months, or more commonly between or after are kind of the ones I use. So I'm actually going to get rid of that right now. And the other thing I'm going to show you here, anytime that you're searching for pretty much anything, there's a couple of little tips and tricks that I like to use. If you take nothing else away from today's webinar, this is one thing I want you to remember. Wildcard. That might be kind of small. It's an asterisk. So Shift 8. Shift 8 is your wildcard. If I were to hit search right now, it's going to come up with everything that has a name, because wildcard means everything. However, more commonly, what we would probably want to see is that we want everything that starts with an A. Now, if I were to just hit A and hit search, it's probably going to come back and say, like, we don't have any folders called A. And we're thinking that, well, no, of course not. We want something that starts with A. How do we do that? A, Shift 8. Now, all of a sudden, we have all of our folders that begin with A. If we want if we know that it's going to be like ABC, I'm trying to give a good example. So another option you have is a question mark. Question mark means one character. So if we search that, we're not going to find anything. But if we do ABC co, and then maybe there's a period, maybe there's not, search. It's a really terrible way to actually look that up. I don't know why I would ever do that. So nothing. I gotta see what it was again. Let's try this. ABC wildcard. So it's abc.co. Really odd name also. So if it's ABC question mark, not sure if it's space or not, and then after that have the wildcard, we should see it return the same. So the question mark is any character. Maybe a better way to show this would be A question mark C dot wildcard. And so it's still going to return that. So question mark equals one character. Asterisk means everything. We're not sure what it is. So that's going to be your best friend. Note also, if you have any folders that are using numbers, or you want to use dates or something like that, you can actually use brackets to say between. So one thing that I could do is actually, and this works for numbers and letters actually. So if I want to say between A and D, and then B, C, wildcard, this will return everything that's named ABC, BBC, CBC, DBC, etc. In this case, though, actually, there you go. As you can see, we have a BBC building management. So the way that I did that again was the square brackets on either side, and then A-D. So there's a couple of things you can use there. Way to commonly kind of do this also, if you're not aware, every single document, every single folder in Laserfiche has its own unique ID. You can see what that is by right-clicking and going to the properties. And under the general tab, you'll see that entry ID. So this one is 7821. So when you're looking for a specific document and maybe the name changes sometimes, things like that, you can keep track of that by the ID. And that's what this custom search option ID is for. So if you want to look for a specific ID, right off the bat, like if I want to start typing in numbers, I'm probably not going to find anything. If I want to search for a wildcard, it won't let me do it because the ID is limited to only numbers. And you're probably thinking like, well, that seems silly. Shouldn't you be able to search by ID using the parameters and the tricks you just showed me? You can, but there's an extra step. So if I go to the search syntax and I look for just ID 215 and hit search, it's not going to find anything. However, if I want to include search syntax in query, that opens this up. So now I can start writing in my own syntax. And so I can actually start basically freehanding the ID and things like that, in which case I can use those parameters. So if I wanted to do everything that starts with, actually, let's do this. Everything with an ID that starts with a 2 wildcard, and hit search. Let's do this. Everything, instead of equals, let's say greater than 200, and search. And this is not working correctly. Oh, it's because it's looking for that ID also. Sorry, make sure you clear these out first. So otherwise it's going to look for everything in this field, and it's going to be looking for everything, including the search syntax. So very similar up here, where I said that you can include your custom search up here by adding that syntax. This is where you can actually build that and copy it. So let's look at a quick example. Out here we have some timesheets that are from a specific month. Now the easiest way to search for those would first of all to be start with name always, because that's going to be our type. We're going to be looking for documents. And the document is going to be called timesheet and then something, so wildcard. So that's going to return a whole bunch of timesheets, but not necessarily just the ones from March, which is what I want. Now, if we know that those were created on a specific date, we can say created between maybe 3/1/2021, actually rather 2020, and 3/31/2020. Although even thinking about that, what if they weren't actually created on that date? You know, in this case, it looks like they were, though, so this will work. Now, if that was a metadata date and not necessarily something in the name of the date they're actually created, what you could do is use the field option. So if you use field, that's saying look for metadata. And this is actually one of the most powerful parts of metadata, and one of the reasons why we really encourage people to use it. Now, you have the option to select fields and say, show me specific fields, and then you can just choose those. And this is all of the different fields from all of the different templates across my entire Laserfiche environment. So if you know the specific date field for these timesheets, you can grab that date. Or if you're not sure, what you can do is say search by template, or both apparently. And so you know that this is going to be a human resource type of document. So show me everything that has a human resources template assigned to it. And it looks like these don't even have that. So we're just going to do that. But if we just say documents created between 3/1/2020 and 3/31/2020 with timesheet, you'll see that we can get all of those. And they show up as PDFs. If we wanted to search by text specifically, remember that we would want to right-click and open their pages, not view electronic file, because that is what's going to give us our text level, if text is even generated, which in this case it doesn't have that. It also looks like it doesn't have an image. If it doesn't have an image, it might have an electronic file pane. You can select that, and this will show you the actual. So we can see here, this was a PDF generated by Laserfiche Forms. So when Laserfiche Forms kick out the actual form itself, it can be a document, or sorry, it can be a PDF or a TIFF. In this case, it's a TIFF. And we didn't generate pages, which means it doesn't have that image file, and it also doesn't have text generated. That means this is not searchable by text. If we wanted to generate text, we could do that. We could just hit this OCR, and it'll say OCR extract text. This will extract text from images, certain electronic files, and so on and so forth. I'm not going to do that because I'm not sure how long it's going to take, but that would then make it text searchable, as you can see. If you have questions about that, let me know. You can do that for multiple also, by the way. Let's say that none of these have text searchable for them, and that's something that's important to you. Just go ahead and right-click. Sorry, I just hit Control-A, select all, right-click, generate searchable text, and that's how you would do that. All right, so we've done date, we've done name. A really easy one also would be within folder. So if you say, I want to find all of the documents that start with timesheet between this date, and they have to be within human resources, or maybe even in employee files. And then you want to be very careful whether or not you're choosing include subfolders or not. If you don't include subfolders, then that's saying, show me everything within the certain folder that you're looking at, and don't look any deeper. That can throw you off. So if you're wondering why it's not returning anything, make sure you're including subfolders. So what you can do then also is just go one level higher and say human resources include subfolders. So that will include all of these subfolders, and then all of their subfolders, and then all of their subfolders, and so on and so forth. So you would select what level you want to search within, and then include or choose to include or not include subfolders. So employee files include subfolders, search. We're still going to get our timesheets in there. So I definitely use those. Electronic document will be a quick way to return anything that actually has an electronic file component You can say with a certain size. So for those of you who realize that, well, hey, maybe my electronic files don't have pages, and so maybe they're not text searchable. How do I do that? I would say a really easy thing to do would say, show me all documents with just the asterisk. So like basically give me all of them and say, has an electronic file component. That'll start you out. But actually the easier way to do that would be to go and you have this text option. So with text, actually this is going to be text specific. So this is going to show me things that it's actually looking for text itself. So let's talk about this for a moment. So if I'm looking for text, then it's obviously going to return documents no matter what. You've got 5 different options here. 5? Yes, 5 different options here. Terms is going to be the most common one. That's really what you want. If you're looking for something that contains something specific, you're going to want to just leave it on terms. So if I want to say, let's see, to be, you can choose to include fuzzy search or not. Say search. Nothing. Okay, so what if we go ahead and do employ and search? That will bring me everything that has the word employ in it and everything that's even close. If we want to clean that up a little bit, we can say include employ and meaning also, where it has to meet both of the criteria, and say author. So this will bring me back everything that has the word employ and everything that and also has the word author somewhere in it. If we double click on these, it'll take us right to the document, open it up, and show us in the text where it finds those words, employment authorization, so on and so forth. We can also do or, meaning it can have either or, so it'll bring me in everything that has employ, everything that has author, and everything that has employ and author. We can also say employ not author. That'll probably limit it by quite a bit. Looks like there's only one that does not have that. And then you can also say within a certain number of words. So if you want to be searching for something that has employment and author within 3 words of each other, you can search for that and it'll give you everything that has that. It looks like the I-9 document, which is of course pretty standardized, is going to have, all of them are going to have that. But that's how you can use text. Let's see what else. Common, honestly, is basically just the same thing as your quick search. So I don't usually use this very often. If I'm going to use common, I'm just going to use the quick search. Business process, this is just if you're using business processes. If you don't know what this little widget is, or you haven't seen this, it's probably not going to be relevant, but this is specifically for documents and folders that have a business process associated with them or have been used in the business process. We looked at electronic file document, ID. Link is just saying that they're associated. So if they have a, like for example, AP link. I don't know if I've been using this or not lately. Okay, so yeah, we see that invoices, packing slips, things like that are going to have a link. If we open that up quick, I'll show you what I mean. A link is a metadata field. So if you go to the metadata option, you'll see that there's tags. That's a type of metadata. You can also search by tags. If I want to see everything that's matched and everything that's paid, if I'm using those tags to indicate that, I can search for all paid documents or all matched but not paid, so on and so forth. Links here is showing that this document, this invoice, is related to this packing slip. And actually, if we were to double click on that, it'll take us to that linked document. So if you haven't used links in the past, it's actually a pretty slick feature, something that I like. All right. So pages is probably more so what I was talking about. So with pages, these are referring to Laserfiche pages. So you can say, show me everything that contains more than 0 pages, or rather contains text on no pages. So if we do that, it's going to bring me back everything that has Laserfiche pages generated, but no text. So this would be my hint that I need to OCR these documents and generate text. Probably more commonly, I would say contains 0 pages. And this will bring me in probably a lot of electronic documents or PDFs, things like that. Actually, a lot more tips than I expected, honestly. If we do both, we can say contains 0 pages, contains text on none. And so these are the ones that haven't been OCR'd. So if I were to click on any one of these, we would see the page contains no text, but text may be added. And so that's where we would want to hit our OCR button or right click and generate searchable text. Okay. So within folder, there is version tracking. You can look for documents that were created by a specific user. So if I want to say that I want everything that was created by Steven. Actually, I don't know if Steven's still a user in here or not. Oh, yep, he was. So Steven created a couple of folders, a couple of samples through a 9.9 document. And all this can be seen actually on the, if we right click and go to the properties, we should be able to see who created it. Entry ID, created, date last modified. All of these properties are searchable. Okay, so the next thing I did want to check on was the save searches. So if I say load, I can look for invoices not paid. I hit OK, and then search, and it's going to bring up all of my invoices that aren't paid. In this case, I paid them all, so they're not there. But that's the search syntax that it's using. So we can actually view that. So if you want to build your own search, you can then save that search for later. So let's go ahead and actually do that. So I'm going to X out of all these, get rid of all of them. We're going to customize a new search, and we're going to just use our timesheets as an example. So we want the name, we want within folder, we want our dates. Let's include our search syntax. So our name is going to be timesheet wildcard. And we want to look within the human resources folder, and we want to include subfolders. And we want them to be created between 3/1/2020 and 3/31/2020. And we can search. Some of you are probably wondering what that 2 is at the end of it. If you've seen that before, that's because it has the same name as a previous timesheet or a previous document. If you have a problem where you have a lot of duplicates or you want to be able to seek out and find duplicates, I'll show you a easy search syntax for that here in a second. So if these are all my timesheets for March or just all of my timesheets for a month, maybe that's something that's going to be relatively handy to have later on. So I can go ahead and just say save. And I'm going to save it as a new search, and it's going to be just called timesheets. Say OK. So if we close out of everything, I don't even need to do that, but just to show you, let's say load, going to timesheets, say OK. They'll build all that up, hit search, it'll return all of that. And then what's really nice here is we can just go ahead and say, all right, well, that's great. Give me everything from February now. So we can just change those parameters quick. That's going to give me everything from, oh, nothing in 2/31, huh? Weird. And like, apparently there weren't any timesheets that month, which is fine. Not a big deal. All right, so how do we find duplicates? Well, it's all in the name, so we really only need name. We know we're just looking for documents right now. So what we want to have is the asterisk, and then So anything before, we don't care. And then I'm going to put my square brackets up, and inside, I'm just going to do 1 through 9. And hit search. And what that's going to do is show me everything that ends with a number. So that doesn't work. Sorry about that. I'm going to have a parenthesis. So it has to be a number within a parenthesis. So that's going to show me everything that has a number in a parenthesis at the end of it. And so if you want to just clean up all of your duplicates, once you return all of this, you can run any sort of activity or task on all of these at once. I just hit Control A. If I want to delete all of those, I could. If I want to tag all of these as a duplicate or something like that, I can do that also. Or tag it for review. Like, is this a duplicate or not? What do we need to do with these? That's a quick way to find duplicate double documents. If you want to just find all shortcuts, I don't think I actually have any shortcuts, but you would very easily be able to just say find all shortcuts. It looks like I have one. All right, so that's that in a nutshell. We have a little bit of time. Let me go ahead and before I jump into questions, I'm just going to show you this. If you have a saved search that everybody should have, or maybe just everybody in a specific department, maybe, go to the admin console. If you don't know what the admin console is, these little keys here, chances are you are not a Laserfiche administrator, so you could find who your Laserfiche administrator is and then show them how much you know now. All right, so we're going to go into users and groups and find the user. Now, depending on whether or not you're using 80 groups or, sorry, 80 users, or if you have LFDS, or if you're just using regular repository users, it's all going to be the same, but just the difference is going to be where you find your user listed. Now, in this case, I've been logged into admin this whole time. So I'm going to go ahead and double click on admin and open up their attributes. And if you go to admin, attributes tab, don't pass out. I know it seems like a lot, but what we're looking for is search. No, we're not. Sorry, that was incorrect. Let's look at options. Or is it save search? Maybe that's it. There we go. So save search. So on view subset, saved search, you can see the saved searches that are created. See the saved search alliteration, am I right? You can see the saved searches for this individual. And now these are all being stored in something that you can actually export as an XML. Now, the only thing you really want to make sure of is that if there are multiples associated with these, you'll want to get all of them. So timesheets not submitted, the best way to see this is just to expand it out, make sure that you have them all. So there's 3 different pieces of the timesheets not submitted. And it looks like there's also 3 for the timesheets. So if I want to select all, I would just hold Control, select those 3, and then export that. And I'm just going to export to the desktop. And I'm going to call it timesheet saved search and save. And then you'll see that that just exported an XML. Now that's been exported, let's say that I want to share that with Steven, or if I want to share that with the everyone group or anyone else, I can then double click on theirs, go to their attributes, and hit the import option. And I can just browse out to that timesheet save search, open, and that'll actually bring that in. We'll hit apply, okay, and that's all there is to it. So then if I go back to Laserfiche and I go ahead and just sign out of my repository as admin and then sign in as Steven, I go to my search as Steven, I can now see that I have a timesheet save search available to me. Thank you. Thank you. I can hear all of your applause. It's really just riveting stuff. I was really excited when I first saw this. I use it quite a bit. The Laserfiche community also on answers, things like that, I'm sure that they've shared these searches also. Another way would simply be to share the search syntax that for any search that you have. Actually, let's just do that quick. Okay, and then I'm going to include, oh, it's already included, hit search. Then you have that syntax already written out for you that you can use and manipulate. So if you wanted to, what you could do is actually just close all this up and then include search syntax, and you can start using the greater than, equal, less than, all of those options here. Oh, last thing before I forget. One thing that was really, really confusing for me for a very long time was, how do I say not equal or does not equal something? Because if you say that, I'm trying to think of a good way to demo this. Just say timesheet space dash space, and then I don't know. I don't actually have a good way to do this quick. Hang on. Let's find something that starts with a number. Or maybe better would be, so if you have a, I'm just going to show you. I don't think I have anything I can actually return, but let me go ahead and show you this. So you can actually use the greater than, less than, equal sign, all of those for these, and it'll populate. The syntax for not equal is greater than, less than. So a lot of times I saw people trying to put in, you know, percentage, equal sign, things like that. It wasn't working. If you want something that says does not equal, use the greater than, less than, just like this. And that will say that the number is not equal to, you know, 8 or what have you. That may only work in the search syntax. Again, I'll play around with it. It's not something that I prepped for today, but something that I definitely wanted to include because that was, again, something that I couldn't find listed easily anywhere. So now you guys know it. And I'm just going to grab my notes quick here and see if there's anything else that I should share with you about this. I think that's it. There's a lot on the Laserfiche help page too about search syntax and little search tips, how to do all that. But with what I just showed you, this is what I used for the first 2 years, and I found everything that I needed to get to. So it should work out for you. With that, let's go ahead and jump into some questions. What questions do you guys have? I see there's a question box and a chat box. I'm not sure if I was clear before. Let's use the question one. Okay, is records management search available in 10.3, or is this a version 11 feature? No, so records management is available in all of them, at least from version 8. However, you won't have it if you aren't using records management. So that might have something to do with it. I don't think it's anything you need to toggle on or off. I think it's something that if you have records management, then you have this. Similarly, you'd be able to see that reflected in your admin console also. You've got the records management options here. You bet. And the reason I didn't include the records management search is because I feel like that's more relevant to the whole records management conversation. So when we start doing a webinar on just records management, I'll include the records management search in that conversation. You're welcome, Jennifer. Thank you for the kind words. These are the highlight of my month. I appreciate you guys and your patience while I just kind of ramble along. I don't always plan these through, and I kind of make things up on the, not make things up, I always deviate from my plan. So I'm glad you guys still can follow along. All right, well, if there's nothing else, I'm going to go ahead and close this out with my little PowerPoints here. These are some basic resources that I use and that I always recommend other people check out. Laserfiche Answers is a good one. If you Google questions about Laserfiche, the first thing that comes up is usually Laserfiche Answers. That's the actual Laserfiche community board where people can come together, collaborate. Most of the questions that I've had have been asked and answered by someone else. So that's a great one. There's also Laserfiche Support page, a lot of help there, and the Solution Exchange. With that, thanks very much, everybody. Again, this will be available on YouTube probably, I think I said by the end of the week, forgetting that today's Thursday already. Next week at the latest. And if you want that link, you can reach out to us at cdi.support and somebody will get that YouTube link to you. Otherwise, you can go to the CDI YouTube homepage and just, I think if you sort them by most recent, you can find it that way as well. And while you're there, go ahead and check out some of the other webinars I've done. There's a lot of great content out there meant to be helpful. So any feedback you can give me on those too, I'll appreciate that. There may be a survey after this also. Fill that out. That helps me to decide what to show next, what I'm doing well, what I can improve upon, things like that. We definitely take that seriously. So fill that out, and nothing else. Have a great rest of your week. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.